Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the special edition of Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai, and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition of Focus on Liberia. Today, the President of the Republic of Liberia, His Excellency George Weah, delivered his fifth annual State of the Nation address in Monrovia. Tonight, we're going to break that speech down. We have invited distinguished personalities from various or diverse political persuasions to discuss the President's State of the Nation address. Before I go further, I want to welcome my man, my co-host, Mr. Anthony C.A. He's the host of the Hour of Politics. I call him the political bulldog because he takes no prisoners when it comes to politics. He eats, drinks, and sleeps politics. Mr. C.A., welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Dennis, thank you. You got Gamon there cracking up, and I don't think he actually believes what you just said. Folks in cyberspace, Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Let us raise the banner for a civil discourse here at Focus on Liberia as we do an analysis of President Weah's fifth, the people call it SONA, State of the Nation's address. Welcome to fellow Liberians and friends of Liberia across the globe. Well, like Dennis said, we have invited some personalities to help us make sense of the speech delivered by the president, and by way of information is a constitutional requirement to inform Liberia and Liberians about the state of the nation. So we are here with these individuals to discuss how did the president do, what all was in the speech, and all that. And so welcome, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. In a special way, we want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Let me take this time to introduce our guest tonight, who will be serving as analyst of the president's speech. First, introducing all the way from North Carolina, Mr. Duke Estrada JJ. Mr. Duke JJ, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Hey, thanks, Dennis and Anthony. Great to be here, and I appreciate the fact that we can sit to be civil about issues impacting Liberia. So I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you. By the way, Duke, I don't want to say that he's ANC, but his view are ANC leaning. That's the Alternative National Congress, and so we want this a balanced panelist here tonight. So we have Duke, who is kind of leaning the ANC way. Next is Attorney Gamonder Clinton. Gamonder is CDC leaning. Mr. Clinton, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Next, we have Mr. Maurice Perfect Manager Kroma. Mr. Kroma works in the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf government. I don't know whether it's safe to say he is UP leaning, but I will let him say that for himself. Mr. Kroma, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you, Dennis. I'm super excited to be here as well with these great gentlemen. The whole UP lineage, that's something I want to, just step back from. I did work for the government, and I'm proud that I work for the UP administration.
Last but not the least is our resident economist. That's he's one of the hosts of FOL Marketplace, Mr. Depu Zuo, and Mr. Depu Zuo has his fingerprint on the pro agenda. That's the PAPD. Mr. Zuo, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here to review the president's statement. It's also great to meet Kroma, Gamana, and Duke in studio today. It's my first time engaging these guys here. I've been discussing economic issue, but I'm glad to be here to look at both political and economics. It's good.
Thank you. And again, today we heard the President's State of the Union address. And so my first question to go around the room is, I believe all of you watched this speech or some of it. It was, as a way of introduction, just tell me a little bit about your impression watching the president's speech today. What jumped out of you? And let me start with Mr. Kuruma.
Dr. Malinger, he's muted.
Dennis, thank you again for having us. This is you can hear me, right?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I unmuted myself and then somebody muted me. Like I said, I'm excited to be here. You know, today is it's a good thing to sit with Depu, my former boss, and a few of the other guys here to talk about President Weah's speech. When I listened to the speech and I read the text of the speech, it seemed like there were two different ceremonies. It seemed like the president said something else, and the speech, is well written. Even though we can challenge some of the things in the context of the speech, but it's well written. But the individual that read the speech seemed to be, all over the place in articulating what was written on the piece of paper. So the whole idea of having the State of the Nation address is for our mothers and our sisters and little brothers to be able to be inspired and have hope. This hope that one day our conditions will improve. 4 years later, after President Weah is president, I'm not sure if that message resonated today. It seemed to be filled with the same old promises since President Weah became president. The conditions of the people have not changed. So the speech itself was just blabbing, just everyday blabbing about what will happen, and the people every day in the community every day have not felt the change that the president promised on the first day of inauguration when he said Liberians will not be spectators in their own economy. And when they launched the Pro-Poor agenda, has said that they want to take about 1 million people out of poverty. Hopefully, we delve into some of that conversation tonight.
Thank you so much. Let me go to Attorney Gamonde Clinton. I know you see things differently, perhaps. Let me ask you, as your introductory statement, your first impression of the President's State of the Nation address?
I think this was one of the most awesome speeches that the president has delivered to the people of Liberia. The president's speech was clearly one that outlined the development agenda of this government over the period of 5 years, especially with the constitutional responsibility that the president has to provide the economic condition of the country, and the Constitution says to provide revenue as well as expenditure, and the president did just that. I disagree with Mr. Kromar that this is all promises. If you look at the speech, you will see that there are very concrete things that the president said that is happening. We've reduced inflation from 13% down to less than 6%. Those are concrete things. Those are hard facts that you can't argue against. For the first time in the history of our country, we are projecting that we are going to raise about $86 million. For the first time in the history of the country, we've raised more domestic revenue, $577 million. So those are real issues that the president outlined. Those are real progress. And there's a quote in the president's speech where the IMF specifically commended the government. And if you read the IMF report, there's a lot of this for strong macroeconomic policy that the government has instituted. It was one of the president's best speeches. I think he met his constitutional responsibility.
Thank you so much. Let me go to Mr. Duke. Duke, what do you make of the speech?
Dennis, thanks again. Listen, look, from the inception of the CDC administration, we've been vocal, and we've told you from the onset that the Liberian people made a mistake. We already knew that CDC, the current administration, was dead, right? But I think today's State of the Nation address finally gives us some clarity, right? Here's the two things. Number one, if the Liberian people can determine if that particular government needs to be, cremated or somewhere interred, in one of the local cemeteries. And here's what I mean by that. When you listening to the president's State of the Nation address today, did it provide optimism? Did it answer those economic questions? Did the government show in terms of progress according to the Pro-Poor agenda, the benchmarks, those things that were actually earmarked, 1 million people out of poverty? How did they do? We're talking about less than 22 months in the election, and we still have a president who just doesn't get it. So to me, it was an absolute failure. Yeah, he said it that fired his own constitutional duty, but for the Liberian people, I think it was disappointment. And the only people who hear what happened today with the president are those individuals who are just loyalists, and they will never understand the true pain and suffering of the Liberian people.
Thank you. Let me go to our resident economist, Depu Zuo. Depu, what did you go into the speech to hear, and what did you make of overall at the end of it? What was your conclusion? Did you hear what you were looking for?
The first thing is that the president's speech should have been the one to catalog the most historical budget, which gone to 700 million. It should have clearly articulated some of the area of growth drivers that will definitely give the Liberian people the hope that indeed, with the fight to come from 500 million to 700 million, there are positive growth on the way. And for me, from the economic side of it, then when it comes to the social side, my disappointment in the speech was that the best assurance that the president could give to the Liberian people, having recognized the death that took place, this is the first time since 47 human beings died in Tapeta in 2019, and now we are seeing 30 deaths in Monserrado County. So he needed to have actually come up with a clear roadmap response mechanism to the people to give hope to the people in Niku Town and Monserrado County, especially so where he himself has some direct link. So these two things actually are things that for me, from the inception, I realized that he missed the ball rolling. Notwithstanding, it is an opportunity for him to go back and see how best the legislative agenda that he said is the attachment, that he can roll it out in his speech wherever they publish his speech so people can see some of the crucial legislative agenda or the growth drivers from the growth in a budget, so we can see that indeed he has made a plan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. C, you heard our analysts tonight, giving their impression. What is your own impression? And then you can take it away from me, because I know you can't help yourself. You want to talk about this speech also.
Dennis, thank you. And I think our panelists gave their individual views. My work is that I think the whole State of the Nation address, other than fulfilling a constitutional requirement, was more of a lip service, was like a disservice to the people of Liberia. Look, Dennis, Perfect Manager said the speech was perfect rating, and I agree. Most speeches that are given by Liberian politicians are written by people who have, great writing skills. So we'll always get good written speeches from our politicians. And it's one of the reasons why President Weah even told us that, look, you will not get the best speeches from me, but you will get quality decisions. And as I was listening, and he was listing, things that have been accomplished, things that are to be accomplished, things that they will embark on, I was looking at Grandma Musu. I mean, will Musu understand this, looking at her living condition? Will Nyanombo understand this, looking at the fact that since President Weah came to power, nothing has changed. In fact, things have gotten, so bad for him. I was looking at my grandmother in Grand Crew County, where President Weah is from. How she's going to understand this? Since her son got elected, has anything improved for her? And the answer is no. And even President Weah knows that. So that is what I said. That was a lip service, other than fulfilling a constitutional requirement. It did not do anything at all. Now, another part that is important here, Dennis, leaders are supposed to inspire the country. Leaders are supposed to inspire future leaders. And sometimes it can be done through the oratory skills of the leader. so that when a young man who does not have that education to President Weah's level today sees President Weah delivering a speech representing his country, will be wow and will want to say, I want to be like him. Did we get that? Of course not. Even President Weah will be so eloquent to say, hey, I did poorly. That is my assessment.
Thank you so much. And let me ask my first question, because we're talking about the President's State of the Union address. By the way, I enjoy the army band, the different tunes that they were playing. I like that, especially those Liberian ones. But here's my question. The State of the Nation, as we know it, is a communication between the President and the legislature, in which the Chief Executive reports on the current conditions of the country and provides policy proposal for the upcoming legislative year. Let me start with you, Duke. Did the President do that today?
Listen, the president did not do a good job in telling the Liberian people how he intends to guide them. You mentioned the AFL. By the way, I actually enjoyed the music from the AFL. One thing it reminded me of, right? We need good music when when the ship is sinking, right? And that's what's happening with the president. I don't think that the president provided clarity in terms of policies for the future. I don't think that his State of the Nation address gave some level of optimism in terms of what they need to do over the next 22 months. And here are some of the things that I felt, were left up. Number one, we just had a recent situation with disadvantaged young people at the recent crusade. It has been a recurring theme in the country. There was nothing in that speech today that provided clarity in terms of policy, how the president and the government intends to provide opportunities, right, for those people, job, right? All of those things were not there. So for me, I think that was, that was a little lapse there. I would have thought that they would have been smarter enough to tell the Liberian people, but it's not something, look, it is something that I expected, because we know that the government has only operated on lies and deception. And Dennis, you are somebody that's a reputable person. FOL is a reputable media institution. I think today's State of the Nation address was based upon lies and deception, and that's what we're going to consider it as.
Mr. Kuruma, in your view, when you watch the president, what did the president set out to accomplish? I'll give you an example. And based on your listening to the president and reading the speech, did the president do just that? And you are muted again, so be careful.
So Dennis, this is what I'm going to say. I know my friend Gamo there is propelling this message that the revenue envelope has increased, and it means that we are a successful government. Revenue increment supposed to translate to the people, because budget in itself supposed to have an effect on the everyday people that live in the country. But in the president's speech that he gave today, yes, the budget did increase. But if you take a proportion of a budget that is spent on government workers, that is spent on recurrent costs, that is spent on goods and services for the government's operation, it takes the entire budget. So public spending, just public projects that are supposed to benefit the people, you only have 5% of the budget that is going towards that. So when the budget was around $500 million, we're spending 5% of it on public goods. The budget goes to 700 and whatever, 780 something million dollars. We're still spending 5%. So it means revenue increasing, but bulk of the money still going to the public officials and the people that are in public service.
So
the rest of the people don't benefit from it.
Maurice, my question.
So in essence,
what did what do you think the president was trying to accomplish in this speech? And did he accomplish that?
So the president is trying to brag to us that they're doing well. They're collecting money. The revenue is going up. The president was bragging about it, which is not a bad thing. But the president is not being presidential when he cannot cut down on the expenditure, the recurrent expenditure that is happening inside the administration. He needs to be the president and say, okay, we're spending too much money on just traveling. we're spending too much money on county tour. I mean, he brags about $10 million on county tour that is supposed to benefit the people. I'm hoping my friend Gamoda here will tell us some of the public expenditure on the $10 million county tour that benefit the people directly. I'm really interested in hearing that tonight.
And Gamoda, I'm interested in hearing. I don't know why you think Gamoda should be the one to provide that. You can also, but Gamoda, as I stated to Duke earlier,
because he has already said the president. He said this is the best speech the president have given. That's what he just said, right?
So Gamoda, what is the president trying to do here? As I stated earlier, the state of the nation is a communication between the president and the legislature. And what we in this speech, we are expecting the chief executive to report on the current condition of the country and provide policy proposal for the upcoming legislative years. Did the president do that?
The president did exactly that. And you already know that the speech was I think 2 hours. You can't, the way the state of the nation is written, there are priority areas that are highlighted, right? You can't put everything entirely in a speech. You'll be there for hours. We are talking about a whole country, right? It's a lot of things that are there. What the president did, when you talk about legislative agenda, the president made mention initially in the speech that there were 23 pieces of legislation that were passed, right? He also stated that there are 35 pending before the national legislature. Those are his legislative agenda. Those are the pieces of legislation that he's put before the national legislature. So, and the president said that, look, we've attached this as an appendix to a speech so that you can take a look. Because of time, we can't go through all this. You're right. The state of the nation is to report on the state of the country, particularly economically how the country is doing. And the president did exactly that. He was very clear. He was very detailed with revenue expenditure. He was very detailed with how much progress we've made in investing in infrastructure and reducing inflation and improving the economic condition of our people. You have to understand that we are living in difficult times, and this administration took over during the difficult period, right? When the government took over, there were a lot of things that were working against the government. And the president, with the speech initially, did acknowledge that there are challenges, but the government has been able to pull through. For instance, the economy was seriously attacked because of COVID. We know globally it is a problem, right? We've been able to even in the midst of that, right, with the lack of international support coming to the country, we've been able to use domestic revenue to do a lot of infrastructure. When you talk about that, this is not trickling down to the people. Talk to the women, the market women in Douala Market who were just celebrating, the construction of new marketplaces. And talk to people in Omika. Talk to the people in the different counties that we've invested and build new low-cost housing for. Thousands of housing in different counties across this place. When you talk about that this budget, national budget is not trickling down, talk to them. Talk about the many doctors and nurses whose salaries were increased and the number of teachers who've been added to the payroll. Now, that is what development is, and that is what the president is committed to. It's investment.
Attorney Clinton, sorry to cut you off, but that's on the report. What were some of the policy proposals for the upcoming legislative year that you hear in this speech?
The president did not go into
but Dennis, before
I think we need to be able to fact check, right?
The point that I made, Dennis, was that I took the president's own words.
Hold on,
I don't want Gamoda to just give out information.
Just hold on. I just want Gamoda to end his thought on the policy proposal. He said, because this is a 2-hour speech. So,
okay.
So go ahead and your thought on the policy proposal, and I'll let you come in.
If you look at the speech pretty much for me was in 2 parts, right? And the first section, the president reported on the revenue and expenditure, which is his constitutional responsibility, right? The next part of the speech is where you see the president talking about some of the progress and some of the challenges and what he hopes to do within the next few years. So yes, the president did that. If you're talking about legislation, particularly, he did not list all those legislation when you talk about legislative agenda. But again, that's a speech. I can't take everything. That's why the president added that. We can endeavor. We can endeavor to get a copy of that appendix and look at all the legislative proposals that the president has presented to the legislature and discuss them. So Yes, the president did provide that there is a legislative agenda, and to say that there's some has been achieved. 23 different pieces of legislation were passed from financing agreement to different things.
Okay, let's make this as interactive as possible. So, Maurice, you wanted to inject before we go to
Yeah, I mean, just before the other people come in, I don't want to be overbearing, but I just want to read exactly the president's words verbatim, so that Gamoda, if he wants to talk about I don't have a problem with talking about the successes, but I'm taking the president's words and I'm giving it to him to hear what the president said in the speech. He said, on the other hand, total cash expenditure for the same period under review was $668 million US dollars. It means that's the amount of money that is spent from taxpayers, $668 million.
Government.
Of that amount, 44% was spent on compensation. So 44% of the $668 million, that's salary, they're paying salary, right? Then 25% on goods and services. So if you have 44% and 25%, you're talking about around 60-something percent, right? Then 17% was spent on domestic and international debt, and 5% on public sector investment. 5% public sector investment. This is the president's own speech. That I mean, put it inside.
But you
want
me to address that?
Hold on, Gamoda, let me push back.
I want that Gamoda to know that only 5% of this $786 million that they're running around with making noise about, only 5% of it is going on public service investment. That's all.
Morris, is that new in the Liberian budget?
Well, can we compare that with previous administration and see how much of the national budget was spent on?
You see, and this is exactly.
When I made the premise, Dennis, I said that during the Ellen time.
Yeah.
No, you asked me a question. I want to answer the question.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So I made a premise that when the budget was around $550 million, we have 5% on public sector investment. Yeah. So the budget can go to $700 and some more million that everybody bragging about, that we're getting so much revenue and we still spend only 5% on public sector investment. It means that we're getting more money, but we're not increasing the public sector investment that is supposed to benefit the public. And much of the money is still going around people that work in government. That's the argument I'm making. I want Gamoda to address.
No, I want Duke to address.
Well, Morris, you should be the Morris, you should address this issue. Morris worked in government long before, right?
Hold on, because Duke, this is our tradition, right?
Yeah.
We get 1 million is 5%. We get 2 million is 5%.
Let Duke talk. Let get Duke your chair.
This is our tradition.
Dennis, I'm not going to get into the middle of a fight here between who's better in terms of mediocrity that I see going on. That's why I've chosen, right, a new path forward, right? And that's providing jobs for 5 million Liberian people. Here's the thing. Government started off by talking that the State of the Nation address is arranged in a way wherein it only gives priority, right, to important issues. You're telling me in a country wherein 80% of the population are young people, about 80% are under 40, right? And you're saying that issues impacting those disadvantaged youth, the same young people who propelled this administration into leadership, they are unimportant. That's troubling. Secondly, I like when they use the construction of marketplaces and market stalls. Dennis, let me say this. One thing that we have to take a look at, and they only use the market construction as some selling point because they think that they can tap into that base of people. But here's the thing, though. What's important, right? What's more important in terms of constructing market structures when there's not any direct economic impact, right? That actually falls down to the rest of the population. And something interesting, those market women are selling to send their children to universities. Guess what happens? After they send their children to university, they leave the walls of the university, they walk into unemployment. So we're not finding solutions to address those core economic issues. And the president's speech did not address it today. That's why they had no policy going forward. That's why they didn't have any details. They talked about stabilizing the economy. There was no numbers to show because we know that unemployment is higher than it was before. But that's another thing we're getting to. But this is the dishonesty that I'm talking about. Then the president's State of the Nation address did not answer those present issues, and it did not bring some level of hope to those Liberians who need some kind of leadership from the president of Liberia. That's what I wanted to counter.
Thank you. Let me since you are talking about revenue, expenditure, and all this, let me bring in Economist Weah.
Yes, thank you. Before I go to the economic aspect of this whole thing, I want us to look at it. When it comes to the state of the nation, it has something to do with the legislative agenda. Interestingly, you listen to the president's speech. He said last year they proposed more than 50 agenda and only 23 passed, and he has up to 35 pending, meaning that the previous year, it means that there were low performance, technically, from the legislative work. That was low performance. Now the balance 35, of that 35, interestingly in his detail, 7 of those 35 came from 2020, meaning that there have been some challenges with the system and how the legislature is performing right now. So as a president, it should have been his priority to ensure that when he's coming district, since he underperformed in the previous year in terms of legislative agenda, he should actually propose new policy issue and outline the priorities among those legislation and say, look, out of this, we are taking into consideration the top 10 that will address money issue, that will address health issue, that will address, so that will bring about the growth of the economy. I didn't hear that. So that itself is something that he needed to have clarified, because if you are having 2020, pending issue from 2020 is coming to 2022, meaning that you have to set your priority and sell it to the legislature. That's the main reason why you come to the legislature. So if you still have a pending issue from 2020 and you got 2021 and you go, and he came again, he did not outline the policy objective for this year to say, okay, these are the top legislation for this year. This will drive, there's a fishery, the issue of, okay, I heard him talking about anti-corruption. Yes, that was good. The Central Bank Act actually giving Central Bank independence, but no new legislation was listed. And to say, this is what I want to be my priority. So that is something that we needed to have looked at carefully. Now, in terms of the economy, realistically, it is interesting to note that instead of looking at high-level priority, the president took $10 million county tour. So that means that a county tour, is it a county tour that will provide jobs? Is it a county tour that will create jobs? So it's like the speechwriters themselves supposed to be looking at priority ranking and say, look, this one will hammer in, this one will create jobs, this one will convince the partners in the rest of it. If you have county service centers that are not functional right now, and the president is pumping $10 million into county tour, then we're talking about economic performance. What could be the yardstick for the indicator for performance? So these are things that I think those who drafted a speech themselves should have told the president, no, we go. Why they should that there's some way that people can bring political flavor into the speech. The economic side of it and the real bread and butter issue on the table is what attracts people. So I don't think that the partners that are there will be pumping their money for county tour. What they want to hear is that the county service center, because of the fiscal decentralization, and he was the one that passed this identical local government act, it should have been reporting on the performance of those county service center to say with the low revenue capacity, we have put in this amount of money to increase the revenue generation in the local county. That itself, it become more genuine economic policy issue that can drive the performance of the government. Then now the next year, people will say, okay, now you promise to increase the revenue generation at the local level by this %. And the good news is that he came up with it. He said they want to, Liberia Revenue Authority, LRA, is now trying to see how best to localize the revenue collection. That's a very good idea. But now the revenue collection will have to be done at a local level. But it's not county tour. So what are some of the priorities set by the government to ensure that what is the case study that is being done right now in Magibi County, how do you roll that out to the rest of the 14 counties that you can raise more domestic revenue as he promised? I didn't hear that clearly. So it is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me bring in my co-host as soon as he who's wearing two hats here tonight. He can do whatever he wants. But here is my question, Mr. C. And let me start by reading what the president said in the first statement. And forgive me, I'm not going to use my Judge Weah voice. He said, I stand before you today in fulfillment of a duty in accordance with Article 58 of the Constitution of Liberia, which mandates that the president of Liberia on the fourth working Monday in January of each year is to present the legislative program of the administration for the ensuing session and report on the state of the republic covering the economic condition of the nation, including expenditure and income. Again, it is this legislative part of it, the legislative program. That's the one I didn't hear much about. Mr. C, what's your take and what question you have?
Dennis, there is a fundamental question that will address this expenditure side of the government. Our government is nicknamed pro-poor government. Now, if you look at in the speech in the 2021 budget was around 646 million. And our perfect manager talked about this. Now, 646 million, the only percentage that you set aside there for national development is just 5%. If you do the math, I'm terrible with math, you might be talking around $32 million here. So you have $600 million. And on top of this $600 million, you have 46 to it. So what do we need in Liberia right now? The government is boasting that it's carrying on massive development everywhere. How can you convince us that you are carrying on massive development, roads, markets, and all that? It is the percentage of the budget that you will set aside for development that is much more needed, especially for the young people in the area of job creation. They talk about TVET. Most of the programs they are boasting about are funded by the donor partners. How you have a 646 million and you can't even spend a single 100 million of the 600 million for development? Now you have a 700 and I believe 48 million, which is the 2022 proposed budget. From what I see, it might be just about the same 5% that it was set aside to carry on development in Liberia. So this is how you know that the government does not care much about serious development, but it is only telling us, that's why the president emphasized our donor partners, the Japan funding this, United States funding this. Partners are funding most of these projects. Our own government is not giving even 10% of a budget for the development of the country, for the development of its people. That tells you that the government is not serious. If anything does not tell you that, then I don't know where you have to look. And bulk of the money that is spent on the operation of the government, there's no transparency. There's corruption. Most of the money end up in their pockets. This is how they are building these mansions. This is how they are getting Mussolini, and you name the rest of it. And that is why they are putting more money in the running of the government, because they know that the money they are putting in the running of the government will be money for them that they can take for themselves, and they don't care about the Liberian people. That is the expenditure side, and that is the reality.
The president gave his report, and listen to this. He said, based on the report, based on what I've outlined so far, here's the conclusion of the whole matter. The state of our economy is stable and growing, and that the state of the nation is peaceful and strong. Mr. Clinton, do you agree with that? Do you agree with that report?
Yes.
And why?
I think that's a true statement. When this government, I wanted to address other issues, but let me specifically, when this government took over in 2018, there were a number of economic issues, and because of the strong economic policy the government has put into place, this is not me talking. This is not the government saying. This is the one body in the world that is responsible to do economic projection that is saying that the economy is growing from -3% to about 3. I think 3. What the numbers is about? I wrote it somewhere.
3.6%.
3.6%. The growth are projected to 4.7%. These are the numbers that are coming from the IMF. So when the president is saying that the economy from -3% has grown to 3.6, like when the president said the economy is growing, is he wrong? Is that not a fact? Of course, it's a fact. The projection.
I would say the president is wrong.
The projection. No, you said no. Tell the IMF. The IMF wrong. The IMF is the one that did the projection.
So Dennis,
Duke, I'm coming to you because Duke,
wait, Maurice. Let me address your issue, Maurice.
Right. Let's protect Gamon.
Yeah, thank you. So the economy is growing. It's stable. I'm not an economist, but you have the economist on the platform, Maurice, with the economic background. Of all people should know that it doesn't take a year to face economic problems. It does not take a year. It doesn't take 2 years. And no one expects that in a period of 5 years, the president is going to completely turn around the economic condition of our people. It is impossible. What the president has been able to do, using the strong policy that he put into place, that the IMF has so well commended the government on, and giving us, some $300+ million in loan because of those policies, is moving the economy. We talk about previously. I talked about inflation. When the government took over, inflation was way high at 13%. What is inflation today? Less than 6%. Are you telling me that these are not economic progress? Are you telling me that when they for -6% and we have a growth of 3.6%, that's not progress? Are you telling me that when the economy is being projected at a growth of 4.7%, that's not progress? Let's be serious, right? We have to be serious here. Liberia is now a part of that. There are challenges, but the government is making significant strides to ensure. We're talking about the national budget. Anthony was talking about the national.
Conclude on that's the economy. He also said the state of the nation is peaceful and strong. Comment on that, and I'll go to Duke because we want to get some numbers.
And this is one of the truest statements. The state of the nation is peaceful. It's very peaceful. We've not had any kind of major incident within the last 5 years in the country. Mind you, unlike previous governments, since the end of the Civil War, that had been babysat by international partners. We had the largest UN peacekeeping mission in Liberia that left the country after the Sirleaf administration. George Weah government is the first post-war government that has taken over the security of the country and has been able to manage the peace and stability of our country for 5 years. So yes.
Thank you. Let me go to Duke. And Duke, I want numbers, right? Don't tell me the economy is not growing. You're not giving me numbers. Show me the indicators. If you are saying the president is wrong.
Dennis, listening. When I started, my intro, and I made a point, and I want to re-echo that. I said, for ordinary Liberians, there's something important, a decision that they had to make today. To cremate what's left of the Weah administration or to inter it into a local cemetery in Liberia. And I mean it, honestly speaking. Today, Liberia died. Absolutely. When you are talking about the state of the economy, and you're throwing numbers in terms of inflation and the reduction. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of China. At some point in time, the Chinese were cooking the books, right? And we found out later on that a lot of fallacy, and even this administration, you remember there was a point in time, and Maurice, you can come in, when the African Development Bank had come up with some sort of statistics, and what did we fall in? Absolute regression, right? The thing about projection, Dennis, is this. Yes, a key point that I want you to focus on. So let me be practical. Dennis comes here and say, I'm going to take $25,000 and I will put it into a stable value fund. Morris look at Dennis and say, over 5 years, I expect you to see some sort of growth of 5% over a time frame. It's not guaranteed. It doesn't mean that it will happen. It fluctuates. It's speculative, right? So it's not realistic because we've seen the trend. What is the government doing, right, for the economy to feel that it was working for the ordinary Liberian people. When we started from the previous administration, I believe, what was the number? About 3%. Where are we now in terms of unemployment in the country? Right, 3 point something percent or so. Right. When we talk about growth in the private sector, right? What are we looking at? He mentioned today J-Palm. Okay, great, an amazing story. But what have they done to give the private sector, right, some sort of jolt in terms of creating? Remember, the private sector is what creates jobs for people to be able to get on the feet. So to me, it's fallacy. The state of security. Dennis, listening, my brother here, and with all due respect, said that there hasn't been anything major. Will you consider the death of those auditors unimportant? Odell Sherman, Jackie, those Liberians who have actually lost their life with no justice, the culture of rape in Liberia. Then you talk about stability. Also, finally, right, Dennis, you're talking about introducing some sort of money laundering process and stuff, and you're serious about stability, and you feel that there's freedom and what have you, but you're engaged in political witching. And to add insult to injury, your solicitor general now is partnering with those who have been indicted as money launderers in the country. And then you want to tell us that the state of the economy is stable and the security is stable as well. No, the economy is not working. I don't need to go into details here. People know that, right? Look at the unemployment numbers. Have there been any improvements? Look at how, the policies that he's talking about. How is it changing the lives of the Liberian people? How many Liberians can tell you today that they've been impacted in the private sector and they have jobs to feed their family? It's
Duke, show me the numbers. Show me the numbers that prove the president is not correct by saying
but that's what I started. That's what I started from in the beginning. And I said, let's look at unemployment, because if you're talking about economic success, right, then you're listing how many jobs have you created, right? Meaning that how many people can fend for themselves. If you go back to the previous administration, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I think we started about 3% or so. Where are we now in terms of that? It's 3 point something percent. There's been increase or rise in unemployment in the country. So more people are unemployed under the Weah administration than were under the previous administration. The question to really ask here, Dennis, finally, right, is this part here. Okay, let's say we give the president the benefit of the doubt. They've actually reduced inflation. Big deal, right? What exactly did it lead to? How did the reduction in inflation, right, equate to some kind of economic success that impacted the ordinary people? That's the metrics they can't show because they don't have it. It's based upon fallacy. It's based upon illusion. It's like a kid on the beach building sandcastle and thinking that it's a luxury building that needs to be somewhere in Manhattan as well. So that's what I wanted to check and provide some kind of clarity too.
Thank you. Morris, the state of our economy is stable and growing, and that the state of the nation is peaceful and strong. Let's start with peaceful and strong. Are you in agreement here or disagreement?
So that's exactly where I wanted to go. With this whole, the state of the country is peaceful and is strong. How in the last 1 year we can, point to some of our people dying. Just recently, last week, people die in Nukutown. People talk about Nima County, where our people die in Nima County. All of us are aware of the young Muslims that died in a fire recently. What did the government do what is the government doing to protect lives and property? Forget about all that death thing that's happening. They haven't done anything with that. You have government officials riding in some of the most expensive cars. You have government officials that escaped the country, stole money, escaped the country, and they, bought humongous houses in America that we are aware of. But you're still saying that things are okay and the economy is strong. When Weah administration took over 4 years ago, the typical assistant director at the Ministry of Finance probably was making somewhere around $2,000. And there was this whole idea of, fiscal discipline and responsible fiscal management. And so we try to cut down some of the waste in the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration because it doesn't make sense to pay somebody, $2,000 or $2,500. 4 years on, Dennis, those people that were technical people in those ministries that were doing most of the heavy lifting, they cut their salaries. Some of them probably making around $750, $800 now. Meanwhile, you have the top inner circle of the president and the presidency that continue to loot money. You have the lawmakers that take $30,000 out of public money and put it in a packet and go every single year, and nothing happens. But the president cannot muster the courage to say at the national, when I'm addressing the State of the Nation address, I need to talk about this $30,000 that lawmakers take every single year. It doesn't make sense. The reason the president can't muster the courage to do that is because it takes away from he don't have the credibility to do it. I want to read one part of the speech that he also, said today. He said, Mr. Speaker, providing quality education to the future leader has remained a paramount priority for my administration.
Which page is that?
I don't know the page number. I'm reading from Front Page Africa.
Oh, okay.
He said, providing quality education quality education to our future leader has remained a paramount priority of my administration. I'm pleased to report that we have made great strides in improving literacy, other learning outcomes in the educational sector, with milestones achieved in the area of access, quality, underline, and system transformation. Yeah, please tell me, my people. We just had a public exam test that was done less than a month ago. The president is brave enough to tell us nationally that they have improved on the quality of education when we have mass failure in the country. You look at
Morris, for you to make that claim, shouldn't you say what?
Come on there. Just let me learn, Chief. I mean, it's okay. You have your time. Just let me learn, and then you have your time to address this thing.
But Morris addressed the issue of political prisoners. The president said there are no political prisoners. We have not had war. The president stressed peace. So the president right when he said the state of the nation is peaceful and strong.
So Dennis, the president have driven people out of the country. There are, Henry Costa. If Henry Costa was in Liberia, probably will be dead. He'll be a dead man. We all know the story of Henry Costa, right? He ran out of the country. So we know that that's true, that there's no political prisoner, but we know that there are people that lose their life every day, or either they get killed, or somehow they have to run and escape from the country. We know some of that stories a lot. We know what happened with some of the people that are in public office, that technical people that died under this Weah administration. So it's not me just saying it, but just look at the U.S. government report on Liberia on human rights. They have a terrible record. It's terrible. But you can't come and be brave. The president cannot be brave to tell us at the State of the Nation address to say that the country is stable and peaceful. How is it peaceful when people that are sitting away in Washington, D.C. can tell us that country there are massive human rights abuse that is going on, and people are dying miserably in the country. Nobody knows how they're dying. They tell the country is peaceful and stable. Who wrote that junk for the president to read it? They're setting the president up. They're setting him up.
Thank you. Mr. Zuo, let's talk some numbers here. The president is saying the state of our economy is stable and growing, and that the state of the nation is peaceful and strong. You know about economic indicators. Give me some numbers here to tell me that the president is right or wrong.
Yes, I think the projection, normally I will tell you that sometimes people do the forecasting and projection, and afterwards then you see the reality. So for now, the projection is positive in the direction of 33.6% growth. At the same time, there are other issues that the president did not address, which are all major contributors to the growth. Realistically, let's just leave this whole issue of growth and go to our debt, the issue of our debt. The good thing is that he mentioned the debt challenge and try to go back to his predecessor and say how much they left. Yeah. But he did not indicate, since he took over, what debt have been accumulated over the period. When this government came to power, you have 1.34 billion debt.
No, Chief, it was 1.1. It was 1.1 for the record. It was 1.1.
1.134. I said 1.134.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're right.
1.134 billion debt. As we speak, the projection for 2022 debt is 2.21, meaning that in 4 years period, you've accumulated 988 million debt, almost 1 billion. So, what is the rates for the economy that is not generating any major revenue, and it actually rely more on it? That's impact. It's input dependent. What happened? So the question there is that how do you pay back somebody's loan? And how do you really look at in terms of domestic production? So these are things that needed to have come out clear. That's why I said that the speech writers were not really looking at it, they were not forward looking to say, okay, when you put a figure and say this, you should be able to justify. Then the president, the readers and other people understand, oh yes, this is the direction it's going. Because these are some of the things that will drive the legislative agenda. If we are talking, will this number give the opportunity for a legislature to really approve any loan coming back into the country? Will they have an opportunity to say, okay, we have this investment coming, so you have to approve those loans? These are numbers are supposed to be stated clearly in the statement, in the speech, because that one made the economy strong, especially so a small economy that is, in fact, it's good that we are talking about domestic resource mobilization. It's fine. But we also have a huge domestic debt that is hanging. And most of the companies that are operating in the country need this debt waiver or debt payment to enable them to actually pick up as a business. And this is one thing that I said before, I think during this conversation here on one of these stations, I mentioned that we are not really, spreading our expenditure in such a way that you look at the cost benefit. How much it costs us to invest in certain activity, and what would be the benefit if we spend $10 million, for example? The president must pay us $10 million on country tour. What do we get in return? So these are challenges that we have. The local companies that are, because the PFM law gave companies the right to pre-finance. And most of the infant industries, when they pre-finance, their operation, government operation, and time for payment, they got stuck. 2-3 years along the way, that company break down. It also affect the private sector. What are some of the opportunities that this current budget that is going to $700 million? What are some of the relief opportunities that are there? What are some of the packages that the new legislation that will be in place and say, okay, Liberians that are employing more than 15%, this is the tax waiver they will get. So these are things that we need to hear. I didn't hear it clearly. Even though we talk about, the issue of tax waiver is being stepped on right now, but you stepping on tax waiver for infant industry in the country, but you are giving tax waiver to $1 billion companies. What's the contradiction? This will have the ability to pay, and some of the in tax law is that ability to pay and willingness to pay. These small infant industry don't have the ability to pay, and they don't have the willingness to pay. And you stop, waiver from them. But companies, $1 billion companies that have the ability and willingness to pay, you waive it. So what happened to the economy? You just translating domestic resource mobilization. So what is important here is to say, okay,
people, at that point, someone will ask you, it's been that way forever.
No, they have been waiver for companies domestic companies that are actually employing Liberians that are doing, in fact, companies that actually have production advantage in certain areas were giving waivers. And that's what we need to be looking at right now. But you can say companies that are agricultural products that are producing agricultural products locally, agricultural imports locally. These companies will definitely have tax waiver. These companies need to have more incentives to produce. That is an opportunity. Fishery companies that are actually employing more, boat owners and fishermen. What are some of the incentives for them? These are things that we're waiting for, and it becomes very realistic.
Dennis, just quickly on this point, I want to also note that the government told the Liberian people that it has consolidated loans, pushed it to 2030 at the expense of $16 to $19 million in interest. So I want you to see, like he said, that this government is running on debt, creating more debt, and not spending it right with its intended purpose. I just want to highlight that point, and I hope my brother Gama there, could have covered
that. Look, I'm not an economist, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm an economist.
No,
so some of the economic issues don't expect me to go too much in depth into them. But here is the issue, right? Depo talk about waivers, right? and some of the benefits that the government who could get, or the country would get from giving waiver to certain businesses. But here's the thing: the president also mentioned that over the period of the last 4 years, there has been the government has lost over $300 million in tax waivers. So just the fact that those things are now listed or were not mentioned, broken down in the speech, does not mean there's nothing is being done. I know about different things that the LRA has been doing, different waivers and different executive order that the president have issued on different things.
Mr. Clinton, you act like one time Guinea came to play, and Lone Star beat them. then they say, oh, like Kamara, Sinaka. Fuda like Roma, Sikan, but Sinan play. So the things that are happening, the president didn't put them in a speech. How do you expect us to know?
No, but the state of the nation is not.
Let me respond to that, Mr. Jai. I beg you before you go to Mr. C. One of the things that's one of the main reasons why I said I listened to the president's speech, especially when it comes to $300 million loss in taxes. That means that they are now stamping on tax waiver. That itself is a very good idea. I've gone to LRA, done some interview and asked them, what do you guys hope to do? But here's a take on it. Most of the companies or churches and religious institutions that you are now imposing taxes on them and make sure that there's no duty waiver for them. The return on their investment and the activity in the country is bigger than anything else. While you are also looking at companies like Ashland Metal, Firestone, the rest of them still maintain duty-free waiver at this time, then it becomes a question. So what? That's as an ability to pay and willingness to pay. So which entities are you trying for them to grow? Are you trying to look at Firestone or LAC and the rest of them? You're giving them more entity and giving them more opportunity than Liberian importers, people who carry on barrels that will be sold on a local market at a cheaper price, and also for consumable goods in the local market. These are the people you need to give them the waiver. They deserve it better than anything. That is what should be focused for this government. And that's why it's more pro-pool. It's more pro-pool. And say, look, if you employ at least 5 librarians, you are going to, especially in certain key areas, like agriculture, in forestry, in tourism, we are going to waive this for you. That is it will bring more opportunities, so they will employ more people. That's what we need to be doing.
Thank you.
Instead of saying you will pay, and if you got 5 companies having to pay the taxes and they cannot pay their workers, what happened? You will see most of them will sack their staff. Unemployment will increase.
Thank you, Mr. Zuo. Let me go to Mr. C now. I know you have a lot in you, but let me add this on top of what we got already, Mr. C. The president said, my fellow citizens, in 2017, I came to you promising the following: to give you power, to improve your economy, to empower your youth, and to sustain peace.
So, Dennis, let's start with peace.
Brave.
Let us start with peace. I mean, maybe the understanding of President Weah for peace is we don't have bullets flying. Maybe that's his understanding of peace. When a young man wakes up in the morning and does not have a job, when he has the energy to be able to work, to earn a living, and then young man elected a president of his own, in person of President Weah, and he's waiting for the first year, and the second, and the third. Do you think that person is at peace with himself? At least to talk about his family?
Come on.
So maybe President Weah understanding of peace, no bullet flying. We don't have ECOMON, the United Nations peacekeeping troops left. So that is his understanding of peace. But there is so much that going on in the country that we can point to say this country is not peaceful. The country is not peaceful economically. The country is not peaceful when you look at the process of business communities, people struggling to get transportation to go to places that they need to go.
So Mr. C,
we are making 300 years problems.
Oh, we always hear that. Mr. C, you are saying instead of political prisoners, we have economic prisoners. Instead of peaceful citizens. You have people living in the graveyard and are causing havoc, and that is not peace.
And that is the point I'll come into. And Gamon there, want to make fun of this. That's okay.
But I like an opportunity to respond to that.
Let me enjoy my time here.
Can I piggyback off?
No, gentlemen, don't hijack me.
Hold on, let us
don't hijack me, please. Do not hijack me.
Dennis, can I piggyback off Mr.
Dennis, so I will conclude to say,
hold on, Morris.
That people are not peaceful in their mind. People are not peaceful in their mind because of what is going on. We can say this is not new. We saw it Charles Taylor time. We saw it Ellen time. So if that is our justification that it should continue, then the idea of hope for change or change for hope, we should not be preaching it. All right. So let me come to this whole projection of 3.6, right? That Gamon there is celebrating as though Liberia now has turned to those paradise. Dr. Tipotep wrote an article it was published in the Analyst newspaper, January 5th, 2021, talking about IMF projection. And this man is a seasoned economist. So in that Tipotep's piece that he wrote, Dennis, he was able to show from 2014 all the way to 2021 that nearly every projection made by the IMF and the World Bank did not come true. For example, according to that piece, 2027, it was projected that Liberia economy was going to grow at 3%. What happened? It grew by just 1%. In 2018, the IMF and the World Bank projected that Liberia economy was going to grow by 5.3%. It only grew by 1%. In 2019, the IMF and the World Bank also projected that Liberia economy was going to grow by 5.7%. Then it grew by nearly 1%. So these projections are not things for people to celebrate. And I'm happy that we got Depu here. This is an area of strength for me. I'm a political guy. So these projections should not be celebrated. Now, the 9% of them came flat. And then let us talk about the issue of budget shortfall too. Since they are celebrating nearly, since President Weah came to power, we've had budget shortfall in every budget. And somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here. So if you look at all the realities, to say that your success is this projection, it means that you have nothing to offer the Liberian people other than the little that these donor partners are giving us that you're using to build dollar market and the other roads. That's the only thing you have. But as a sitting government, for you to continue to allot just 5% of your budget, and let me finally speak to this issue that the economy, the state of the nation is strong. I agree with President Weah. It's strong for him. It's strong for Mange, and yes, how? President Weah's personal budget jumped from $412,000 in the 2021 budget to $5.9 million in the 2022 proposed budget. So for President Weah, the state of the nation is strong. It is growing because his budget grew from $400,000 to nearly $6 million, his personal budget. But in that same budget, MCSS, where my married son goes to school, for just internet for the whole MCSS system is just 2,000 United States dollars. For that person, the economy is not growing, it's not strong, it's strong for Mange, it's strong for President Weah, and that is sad.
Sad indeed. On that note, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want you to tell me the highs and the lows of the president's speech. I really love some lines in the president's speech. At some point, it was really, really good. So I want you to tell me the highs and the lows of the president's speech when we come back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jar.
Welcome back to Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jar, and again, we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we are discussing the State of the Nation's address by President Weah. This is an analysis. My guest, I have Mr. Duke Estrada JJ. He's joining us from the ANC Global Camp. We have Mr. Attorney Gamode Clinton, who is joining us from the Sakomo tree, drinking all the Sakomorian juice. We have Mr. Perfect Manager Maurice Kroma. He is, at this time, not engaged or not leaning. He's
free agent.
He's a former.
I'm a free agent.
He's a free agent for now. We have the resident economist Depu Zuo, who eats, sleep, and drink economics, and he's here. He has his fingerprint on the PAPD.
Oh.
Something that will.
Follow you.
The PAPD is a beautiful document. Somebody told me.
I was still defending, but at certain point I need to also let people know some of the people.
And I also have my man, Mr. Anthony here. He's the host of the hour.
Yeah, but Dennis, I wanted to.
Yeah, let's move on. Let me start with you. What were some of the high points of the president's speech? Let's start with the high, Mr. Kroma. Don't tell me you don't see any high point in the president's speech.
I mean, I can go first if he's not ready while he's thinking.
So, no.
It's okay not to find a high point. It's okay.
I can go. Then it's,
I wanted to piggyback off of what
let's move
was
on.
talking earlier. I'll come to the high points.
Okay.
But I wanted, because my man Gamode is trumpeting this 3.5% growth, 3.6% growth as success, which is hopeful for all of us. But even if you look at the numbers in the region, all of the countries in the region is projecting a higher projection than Liberia. That is just a fact. So in Sierra Leone, for example, at 4.3%. In Guinea, at 5.1%. In Ivory Coast, 6.5%. Ivory Coast is no joke when it comes to economic projection, but we'll leave that one for another day. But when you ask me a question about the president's highs and lows, I mean, like I said, the president's speech, I don't want to assume, but I can almost predict who wrote the president's speech, because from some of the technical languages that are written there, I can sit here comfortably and tell you who wrote the speech. But the speech is, plenty whole inside the speech from just listening to what some of the things they're saying. You can fool everybody all the time and think everybody will sit down and just accept it. The president is a man they're enjoying. Whether we argue about it, we debate about it, that's just the fact of life. They're enjoying. So the country economy is doing well from their perspective.
Thank you.
But when you look at my own man, Samuel Tuena, he can't even ride in his own car anymore because he feels insecure. So you provide this environment for yourself that you feel, everything is going well for you, but you're uncomfortable with the people that you are living right next to.
Mr. Kroma, the highs of the speech, please.
Let's go to the high. I know. Even Senator.
I don't have a high. I don't have any high right now. At this point, I don't have any high.
Okay. Tell me about your lows.
Yeah. The president was stuttering. I mean, he kept trying to find words and try to, say things. I don't know. He was tired reading, or he couldn't find a word.
He should be tired. Okay,
something
let's go to
fiscal. Something like fiscal. President couldn't pronounce that word today. Fiscal. I will not say how you said it, but go back and go listen to it. It was funny. It's bad for us, our country, because it reflects on all of us as Liberians, and it almost say to us that we are complacent with, mediocrity. Here is a president who cannot read, he cannot articulate any vision, but he's the head of the country. And you have Liberian students that are failing. So it's a reflection of the entire society. But we can sit on these talk shows and talk about things that want to. This is a real issue that we need to fix. All of us as Liberians, we need to fix it. This is not a political thing. It's serious about the country future. Because the young people that are coming out of college now almost feel now, if Weah can really be president, myself, I can be president too. And whatever it takes for me to be president, I will be president. So you see, you inspire people by the dumbness of the highest office.
Are you saying the president can't read?
He cannot read. I don't have to say that. All of us here know that.
The president is reading everything, giving
The
speeches.
president is reading at a fourth grade level. He's reading at a fourth grade level.
Thank
Look,
you.
Morris, let's be serious, Morris.
Hold on, Gamonde. You have your turn. Let me go to Mr. C about his high and low. Let's start with the high of the president's speech.
So there were some highs in the speech, and these highs I'm talking about are just the political ones. When the president got to the point he was talking about roles, that was one of the highs in the speech. And guess why? If there is anything we all agree that we need in Liberia, that roles. Every politician talks about that. Every Liberian talks about that. Every Liberian wants that. So they did a good job there. And this is politics I'm talking about here. President was able to list as many road projects that were completed, ongoing, and the ones for them to start or planning to start, ones that they are trying to source funding for and all that. That was a high because they did a clinical job of putting them into categories, how far they are, and all that. So it has kind of inspired people that, okay, there's something going on here when it comes to road construction. Politically speaking, it was a good strategy. If you were opposition listening and say, damn, this guy here is trying to cut into this narrative, because if he can provide all these rules for our people, they'll have reason to stick to him. I think politically speaking, that was a high for the president.
Thank you. Now, let's keep on the high. We'll come back on the low.
Another high was at some point he left the speech and spoke in the Liberian, ordinary person speaking. He did that. He laughed a little bit with the people, and then so that was a good movement, and that was a high for them too, because he tried to interact with the audience by leaving the speech, and he tried to come down a little more to the ordinary people for them to understand that he was the one speaking. He wanted them to hear that George Weah that they knew, who is not that boatman George Weah. That was a good high for him there. So those are the two highs that I want to talk about. Now let me come to the low.
No, let's go through the high first. We want to see where all the highs, right?
Yeah, those are the
right.
two highs.
And then talking about the roles you talk about, he also called himself the barrow medicine.
Thank you. And
I can maybe borrow medicine on the road he's talking about Ellen Jones Ellie road that she started. Let me go to all the roads that we are talking about today that Ellen Jones
and that's why I said politically, right? Because he playing politics with it. He said, hey, I'm doing this. You see this, I'm doing this. And that's the politics. Politically, it's so hard for him.
Mr. Duke, the president high point in the speech.
Listen, I don't celebrate moral victories, and I'm not here to be politically correct or try to, come off as a, balanced person. That's something I don't play, because I know a lot of times we do that because we want to appease people. Look, maybe the only high is the fact that the president showed up today to talk to the Liberian people. And kudos to him. We didn't listen to a pre-recorded speech. Finally, he decided to show up. That's the only high for me. But there's nothing uplifting in that speech that I want to reference. I don't want to mislead people, and I want to be truthful and let my conscience judge me. The only high was that the president decided to show up today to address the Liberian people. That's it.
Thank you. And that's okay. Let me go to Mr. Clinton. Anthony Gamonde Clinton, the president.
A lot of highs. A lot of highs. Look, Anthony already talked about the issue of roads. The president has made road his priority, and we've said that over and over, and all the economies and everybody has said is that you can't develop Liberia. We can't expand the economy. We can't grow our country until we build roads. Because agriculture, we have to invest in agriculture, and you can, invest in agriculture without having access to roads. And the president is doing a very fantastic job with building roads and building access to roads for our people. So that was a high for me, because he was listing, a number of road projects that have been completed across the country, and many that are ongoing. I was in Liberia just recently. I left the country. If you know the David Junction and area and all that places, you wouldn't recognize it no more because of the massive construction work that is ongoing. The president also talked about access to electricity, right? From about 49,000 customers that had access to electricity in 2018 to now about 130,000 households, right? That was a high for me. Also, the government has moved to reduce the rate of electricity from 35% high to 24%. So those are highs. Also, when the president talked about his commitment to RIP and what the government has done with the procurement of DNA equipment and the setting of presidential task force to tackle the issue of the RIP epidemic in the country, that was another high. So there was a lot of high. I mean, I can go on and pick in the speeches of all the tremendous things that the president talked about.
Thank you, Mr. Zul. The president high points there.
Yes, in addition to the issue of the electricity tariff, which is a very good news for the country, for me, I tell people the fact that it reduced just 1% reduction is an injection into the economy, bringing more cash to other people's pocket. The next thing that I also heard and I read about is that they have like 35 instructors going into service for training of instructors. It's a very good opportunity for us to see that will increase the manpower base for the economy. Another good thing, which is obvious that we always need to praise any government for, is to ensure that we have road network. But what is important here in this condition of road construction work, I have not been able to hear more about the incentivizing of this whole Road Fund Act. How is it happening? Because what we got from
the jobs it provides.
Eh?
I say, how many jobs is able to provide as a result?
How many jobs they have provided for people? So these are things. I know these are all positive sign of it. The only thing that they like Sonin was saying, look, the IMF thing is the projection is that you hold. You say I'm holding this for the number you have. This, if we happen to add this and add this number to it, this is how you grow. And in the event where you are not able to do the assumption doesn't hold, right, you drop. You always drop. That's why in 2018 we talk about 3.3 growth, and later on went to 0.4, and where it is projected now at 3.6. You cannot hold it constant and say this is how it will be up to December 2024.
Exactly, and that's why you guys always say all things being constant. You know that can happen. But thank you. Let me give my own high, and I thought 3 high points I noticed. Number one, when the president said he traveled throughout the country and the suffering he has seen. For me, someone who was born all the way behind God's holy back, and those conditions have existed over years. So the president mentioning that, not that he's doing much about it, but mentioning that made me to know that, okay, he remembered people all the way from behind God's back, that there is too much suffering throughout the country. The president also liked to project himself as this man of peace, and I think he did that very well tonight. He said, as we go from this place, let us continue to walk in peace and unity. And every time president is stressing peace, to project himself as the man of peace. He doesn't like trouble. He wants peace. He was the peace ambassador. And I think he did that very well to bring himself that way. And the lines at the end of his speech, from the heights of Liberia to the peace,
Mars, you don't have to agree.
To the peak of Mount Nimba, from the slope of Putu Mountain to Mount Gibi. The only thing that he was cutting the lines too short, right? If you come from River G, don't go to Grand Cru. From River G, go all the way to Cape Man, stretch it out a little bit. But I thought those were beautiful lines. To me, those were the high points of the president. Let me go to Mr. Duke now on the lows of the president's speech.
Dennis, I'm glad. I'd like to attach some emotions to this, so pardon me. Hey, I sat, and I was going through work and paying attention. And I felt disappointed. And, I speak to the consciousness, the heart of my brother Gamaded. You see, Gamaded, we are taxed with a huge responsibility to stand up for a broken nation in Liberia. And the things that some of us young people do, right, can help to make that country or continue to break it. The laws forming, there were several, but I want to start off with just looking into the eyes of the president. openly lying to the Liberian people. At some point in time, right, we can engage in political rhetorics, but it has reached a point wherein the president is just comfortable with telling lies to the Liberian people. And the sadness in all of that is the population we're dealing with, people that can be easily manipulated, right? And so that was an all-time low. Another key one, after paying attention to everything that went on with the crusade and all of the things, the accusations of disadvantage, and just knowing that about 80% of our population, right, are probably under 40 years, and then probably around 65 or so from 35 or under, and then maybe about the higher percentage of women and men, that we did not think, discussing issues or providing solutions for those people were important. That was really a low for me because, we're going into the final stage of the first term of the Weah administration. And those young people, even in the CDC, the likes of Gamade Clinton, the Victor Yankans, and all of these people who propelled Weah into prominence, they are now the victims, right, of their own regime. And so that's a disappointment. Finally, the issue of, peace and justice and what have you. I think the president made mockery when he talked about, security and, there's no political prisoner. You don't have to, go further to look. It was just the other day when a young man from the ANC Jethro was actually bullied by this government in prison. It just happened recently. It's just a matter of weeks when the president took on a bogus kids to go after one of the leading political figure in that country. Then you want to stress unity. You're lying in front of the Liberian people. You're oppressing. You're engaged on political witch hunt. You're paying the likes of Euro $100,000 to go after people within the opposition. I think we have regressed as a society, and for me, that was an embarrassment. It's a disappointment, especially for young people. And I hope, that some of these young people in the CDC can start reconsidering, because the government's actually taken up. We are used the plights to ride into the sunset, and they don't care about them. And so they will have to now figure out, what to do next. And 2023 will be that determining factor.
Thank you. Attorney Clinton, the president laws. You are muted. You're muted.
Okay, yeah, okay. So, just like my good friend Maurice and Dude, I couldn't find anything, high. I really can find a low. I think the president went out there. He did a very good job,
which is understandable. That's okay not to find low. Let me go to Mr. Kroma for the president's low in the speech. Maurice, I shouldn't be reminding you to unmute yourself.
I want to start from where Duke left off. Just presenting some of the situation in the country and how, the ordinary people are affected by this leadership. For the last 4 years, the country is regressing. We don't need a rocket scientist to tell you that we've not made progress. If anything, the progress has been within the 0.02% of public officials that are relishing some of the country's biggest wealth. If a minister of state can just pick 4 or 5 counties and say, I'll spend $50 million Liberian dollar on scholarship and stuff that are not factored within the budget, it speaks a lot about the administration. This is a national calling. You want to call us opposition, you want to call us whatever you want to call us, but the pinch is on us, especially us that live in the diaspora. We feel the pinch from the economy. When the ordinary man in Liberia can't get his cell phone, card to be recharged, guess who he's calling? He's calling his big brother or his friend that is in America. Man, semi small thing, rough year. So we know how it feels right now in Liberia. The president did not address the issue about the Zogos. It's a very serious social threat to the peace. Right now we can see some of the threat to the peace in our country. The large number of people that are getting induced by drugs and they are just masquerading in the streets and embarrassing other people. That's a threat to national security. The president did not say anything about that. There's too much noise in the country. There's so much noise. The whole idea of getting Mr. Cummings arrested and taken into court. Those are noisy things. Nobody wants to be in an environment like that. There has to be a way to manage these kind of processes. And if you are the leader of the country and you're not able to take charge of these kinds of things, you have the police director who can just make any reckless statement.
But and I mean, come on now, Maurice.
You have come on there. You have your chance. You have your chance, Chief. Just give me a chance. And you have the Minister of State that can go to the airport and threaten people that if you tolerate that again next time, I will fire you, even though he's not head of the airport. It speaks a lot about the weakness of the administration. Unless we address some of these things and checkmate, even the lawmakers are getting reckless. They pour these sirens on the car and they violate all of the rules in the country. But the president and all the people doing it, so everybody else will do it. And unless we fix those things, the country will continue to regress. There will be more regression. I don't think the president really addressed some of the core issues regarding development in the country. I don't think he talked about that.
Thank you. Let me go to Economy Zoo. For the president, laws.
The little observation which I saw as a law is that where the president's speech on education, he talks about more than 700 schools in the country. About 156 of those schools are owned by government. Then in the same section, he said government is the highest spender on education in the country. I think it's a little bit of low analysis. Yeah, because you can't say you got over 700 schools in the country, 156 publicly owned. Then you say you are the highest spender, meaning that the private schools, the faith-based schools that are in the country, money is far below what you spend in the public school. So it is more, in my mind, it was not very analytical for the speechwriter to have allowed that to slip in the system, because private universities across the country are spending millions of dollars to pay teachers in fact, they have better facilities than the government-owned university in terms of library, air condition. So you don't know their spending power. So you can say government is the highest spender. That's one thing that slipped off there that you have actually realized that. And another thing that I see as a law, which I said it from the beginning, is that look, no matter whatever the situation is, 30 human beings dying in Nickel Town. In my mind, I still feel hurt. And I tell anybody that it's good for us to spend our dollars in Nickel Town now. And it should have been a way right there. It should have set up, let's say, book of condolence, announce it through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, ask the partners and say, look, we hope to raise $5 million to respond to this crisis. And right away, you can get more than $5 million. These are things that are considered as low. So he make it more poor. Let the people feel get a dollar spent on the poor. It contributes to growth. Research has shown that. So I think that these are some of the things I see as a low point.
Thank you, Mr. C. Are you writing down your loads? I see you going. You can't stop.
Dennis, I can't stop. This is what we want to do. Talking about laws, I see a lot, and I see a great missed opportunity, and I will end with that. For law, the speech was not inspirational. Come on. When Obama delivers a speech, young people are inspired. They see the essence of somebody being in leadership. They want to be like that person.
See, don't call Obama and we are in the same sentence. Please don't do that
Our
one.
president was not inspirational with this speech. That was the greatest disservice.
The state of the nation is not meant to be inspirational.
Come on, that is in your word. Come on there, please do not interrupt me. That is in your word, that a speech is not meant to be inspirational. That is your word, and you can live with that. The other law I saw was that the president was delivering this speech, and he had his head down, Dennis, can you control Gammon there, please? The president was delivering his speech and he had a head down throughout the entire time. What I noticed is not all because of the president's fault. He's a very huge and tall guy. The podium was low, so he had to be bending over like that throughout. The handlers of the president need to find a podium that will be up to his chest so that he can rest his hands like this. And since he had challenges, he's somebody who got serious challenges reading, so that at least that can help him with composure to do better. That is free advice that the CDC government did not pay for. I think that was a huge low because you had dignitaries looking and the president had his head down just like he had horn on his back. Now, let's talk about the poor reading. Maybe let me let that slide before Gammon there interrupts me again. The speech also was long and it was boring. That was a low. Then we'll talk about the president announcing that he's going to give, I think, 1 or 2 ambulances for each of the 15 counties, and people were celebrating. And I know the dignitaries that, what? Are these people supposed to celebrate the president of the country announcing, giving motorbikes to county officials in the state of a nation? This has come to this low that the greatest opportunity to deliver a political speech that besides the progress of the nation is the opportunity for the president to talk about giving a county a motorbike and 2 ambulances or 1, and people were clapping. It tells everybody that this country is not going anywhere and people are celebrating nothing. Now, let's come to the issue of the president talking about we having an independent judiciary. Why do they have to put that in there? How can a president lie to himself at the same time trying to lie to the people? Do we have an independent judiciary in Liberia? We don't have one. That should not have been said. He should have told the truth about what our judiciary is. It is corrupt, and that is the truth. This is the very judiciary that has been underfunded, and because of that, the Chief Justice sent out a mandate that judges should improvise. These judges are asking people carrying cases to these courts for things like ring of paper before their cases can be looked into. And you call that an independent judiciary that is up for sale? That was sad for our country and laughable as well. Then the issue of the Zogos was another low there. And let me read how the president put it in the speech for people to know that it was disappointing. The line goes like that. Over the ensuing period, the government will dedicate more resources in order to tackle the growing menace of disadvantaged youth, otherwise referred to as Zogos. That's the only line Dennis Ja Baku Kenju, President Weah had in this thing. This is the very government that will go into these graveyards to give these disadvantaged youth 5,000, sometimes 2,000, when they want to elect a political candidate. So they just got them there in that situation tactically because they will need them when they need their vote. They don't see their condition as something that they can spend some money on to transform these young people and make them meaningful people. So the missed opportunity here, like the deputy said, look, the president could have launched a $10 million fund immediately for what happened in Negro Town. We saw very recently the police and even the military engaging these Zogos in the Negro Town era in a fight in broad day. Guns were fired. President Weah has forgotten that. And he's saying police want, carry on an investigation. It was the investigation they carried on and nothing happened. And these people have to attack again at this so-called crusade meant to deceive our people anyway. That was a missed opportunity. President Weah is a son of Negro Town. That was the perfect opportunity for him to raise about $10 million from the Liberian people or foreign partners for them to do something about Negro Town, so that Negro Town now will have reason to celebrate him other than to celebrate him for just being president and doing nothing for them. That was a low.
Thank you. And I must be fair, I should give my low too, because I watched the speech and this is what I saw. When the president started enumerating his commitment he made at these international conferences, At this international conference, we made commitment. We made this commitment. We made this commitment. I thought that was a low. If you go to a conference to make a commitment, and that's what you are reporting to us as an achievement, that was low. Another low was the president forgot when he told the people to stand. He forgot to tell them to sit down. President was what was going on here with the president? Again, another low point is there was no policy proposal, because this thing should be you are reporting, but also give us your legislative policy proposal that we think for the next year. What is it? Because of all these things that have happened, what is it? What are some of the policy changes that you want to see? You talk about the issues of the illegal drug and homeless users and homeless people. I don't know why they say disadvantaged youth. Some of these people are old, so I don't think they are disadvantaged youth, illegal drug abusers. And then he also said the economy is stable and growing. The state of the nation is peaceful and strong. I think those words were deceptive. The president, another low point, quite recently, the president and in Liberia, they say the chief patron of sport got himself involved in playing the county meet.
Yeah.
And he was awarded trophies for winning. And the president had the guts to put this in his speech. He said, I would be remiss if I did not also take this opportunity to personally congratulate volleyball and basketball teams from Grand Cru County for their historical victories in these categories in 2022. Come on now. Must you always inject yourself in these things and give yourself kudos? I thought that was low point. And again, the reading of the speech, we don't know the president to be a good reader. The reading was very poor. He was counting words. So at that, do not give someone who do not read that well 2+ hour speech to read. It's going to be problematic. So his handlers, they didn't do well. Please, next time, 1 hour should be enough. Even if he has to make copies of his speech and just summarize it instead of standing there and just counting words. That to me was a low point. Let's go around the room now and use just one word to describe the State of the Union. The president said, the State of the Union stable and the economy is stable and growing. The State of the Union is peaceful and strong. One word describe for me the state of the nation. Let me start with Mr. Gamonde Clinton.
He's
Mr.
muted.
Clinton, you are muted.
Rising. I would say rising.
The state of the nation is rising. Duke.
Deceptive.
Mr. Kruma.
Fragile.
Mr. Zuo.
I will call it fragile because that's the best word for it. We are in a fragile state.
Mr. CA.
Trouble.
And I would say horrible. Let's take some comments and then we go around the room for you to. There are a lot of comments and we want to go and get few of them. The first one here from Marcus Weah, Morris Kroma, you need to be serious here. If Ellen began roles and Josh Weah decided to complete some of those roles, what is wrong with that? Justice will make sense to Clinton.
I thought you only answered the
If
question.
he was in my mother's shoes and all the hurting families hurting under the change, people. Wait, Morris, you will talk. Faboli Kruma, what is the progress so far with the Coastal Highway project since he claims to be bad road medicine? Emmanuel Jackson, there is no growth in any economy where institutional investments are transparent based on accountability. Liberia doesn't even have institutional development or garbage removal daily. This guy is hateful and emotional, said Mark Roy Sear. Mr. Sear, is that a do you know that person?
No, I don't know that person.
Darling, what we say is joblessness is sign of peace too. There are a lot of comments. Tavina, do you all notice that most sedition pronounce president like Mr. McGill? Listen to Mr. Clinton tonight. I don't think, Mr. Clinton, I don't think you say prayer, Mr. McGill.
Is it the president? The president.
Yeah, I did a chancellor thing. That's how chancellor pronounced president.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And McGill is from NPP, so he might have borrowed that.
I listen to chancellor a lot. That's how he pronounced president.
All right. If Weah was born in the Western world, he would have been considered a special. Oh no, Sharon.
Don't do that.
The best part of the speech was when he talked about their challenges and the choir members clap and cheer. That's the best part of the speech. Sharon is still behind the president. Justin said he has poor reading skill. Adolphus count 2 hours 35 minutes speech. Have no sustained waste of time. Those are a few of your comments. Again, let me start with Depu. Response to any of the comments. I know if you read some of them during the.
Yes, I think what, from all fairness, what is important is that the speechwriter didn't do justice by giving long speech to the president. The president needed something short and pointed to the issue, which I think some of the comments clearly that clearly. Another issue that it's not a good thing. It's like an insult, but the reality is that the president has had constraint in enunciation, pronunciation. Those are words that he has problems with. So I will propose that most of the speech writers should look at some familiar words for both the president and the listeners. That make it public speech and better public communication.
Thank you. This one from Emmerich Nicole. The reason why IMF World Bank projections are wrong is they don't take into account that the bulk of our economic activities are done on the black market. We don't have a system to collect factual data regarding our transactional activities. Do they track activities through our porous port of entries at Guinea, Ivory Coast, and Sierra Leone? That's why IMF World Bank are wrong on our projections.
Yeah, they are always wrong.
And so Rock said ANC will make Weah a one-term president. I can see that coming.
Oh, that one made this Duke smile.
Reality.
Moses, to your point, Anthony, just not having a job alone can contribute or lead to stress and depression, which could contribute to substance abuse, drug addiction, and mental health concerns. At the end of the day, no wonder why the number of Zocos increases on a daily basis. Mr. Kroman, your response to the comments.
Yeah, so I think part of the comment that Emery just made, part of it is true. It's not that is bulk of our transactions on the black market, but bulk of our transactions are in the informal sector. So it's difficult to calculate and figure out, projections. This is something that we struggle with, during the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration time. I know Depu can even speak more to that, because most of the activity is informal. It's difficult to figure out, even with the U.S. rate. Those are things that the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration even struggle with as well. So that is factually truth. The other part that whoever the other writer was asking me what happened to me, what's wrong with we are taking credit for Ellen. There's nothing wrong with that. Government is continuity. The only thing that I have a problem with in Liberia development process is that we don't give credit to our predecessors. It seems like we're always in this acrimony, always trying to beef and try to show somebody that we are better. We are always trying to be better. I think Weah would have been a very successful president if he had started to be honest from the beginning and say, okay, I'm opening the airport today. This is a work that was started by my predecessor. I want to give her some credit for this work. However, if you know, in our administration, thank you, Madam President. I'm opening the ministerial complex. This is a work that was started under EJ's administration. Let's give us some credit for it. The road that leading from Freeport to Red Light, that road was started with the Japanese government. We signed early administration signed a contract. The road project was started by finished under us. The groundbreaking out that happened with the Lofa County road from Banga to Menkoma, that road project was started under EJ's administration. We completed it. The road from Harper to Kawiken, those roads were started under EJ's administration, but we completed. See, I'm giving you this project because I know them. I know them off my fingertip like this.
Yeah,
but Weah is claiming that he is the bio-road medicine and he's facing all the roads in the country. Just give
and Morris, to your point, the only time the president talked about continuity was when he was talking about the debt. Like, hey,
that's correct.
Came from the previous government.
That's correct.
We are servicing this debt. When it came to the roads, he left that out.
He never gave credit for it, which is bad.
Let me point you to this one. Jonathan Ross will say, look at the marvelous work Armstrong Jabba is doing with rice planting. The government has refused to look its way. Maybe I've stayed long in America now, but when we listen to the State of the Union here, the president will highlight people, Americans that are doing extraordinarily well, and try to showcase them. Sometimes they bring these veterans and showcase them. Did we see some of that when our president gave the State of the Nation, or no?
I mean, historically, that's not how we've done State of the Nation.
No, Gamo, no.
Historically, that's not. Historically, that's not how we've done State of the Nation.
No.
Come on, man. Morris, give me a chance. Morris, give me a chance. Morris. Historically, that's how we've done State of the Nation. Would I love to see something like that? Absolutely. But you can't show me any speech in where presidents were leaving how the U.S. president do it, and go and name people and bring people in the hall and give specific stories. It's not really.
Thank God, Depu, my witness, Depu, yeah, we'll talk about that one there, but go ahead.
Come on. Yeah, there are some Liberian businesses that were listed in annual speeches to give them recognition.
No, but that's not what we're saying. We've recognized. I'm not saying that in the speeches that we've not recognized anything at all.
There are some individuals who contributed to the economy and their name will appear there. And there are certain ministry and agencies that will outperform and say this will happen. So these are some of the things, these are the incentive to serve. Who are in the back all along doing all the technical work. You look at certain number and just say, once you do good analysis, they appear in that speech. And it also becomes an incentive for the people to perform. So you don't want to be saying that. It's always good to give people the credit when they work.
He gave himself credit though as a bio-road medicine, but let's leave that.
Dennis, the president.
Hold on, Gamode. We have 5 minutes to close. So let's go around the room and let me get your closing comments. And for each of you, let's say 59 seconds, since we have 5 persons. Let me start with Mr. Kroma. Your closing comments. Let's wind this down. We have 5 minutes.
Dennis, thank you very much for the opportunity. I want to thank you, my brother again. Gamode, my man, I told you and I were in Massachusetts. If you don't see me and I don't see you, then the brother thing you're not working. Let's try to connect. Duke, I think this is the first time that we had a platform together. It's good to meet with you, my man. Very good conversation. My own, brother Depu, we'll talk about our thing behind the scene. After the show, I'll call you. Personally, thank you for the opportunity, Dennis. It's been great. Let's keep talking, man. This is about our country. So the more we talk about it, hopefully some people can listen and make some change. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Depu, well, someone wrote say you should stop eating. Depu, go ahead. Your closing comment.
After 1 hour, I needed to choose something. I want to say thank you so much. My first time meeting Gamone and Duke and Tony, you and Ja. Thank you for the opportunity. What I want for people to always do is to ensure that people listen to the real facts the data be out there, Liberians be able to use their own judgment. And I think Focus on Liberia is doing that. And you don't have one set of analysts that will come to just give the big, better picture of everything. I want you to just open up to that. And tomorrow or on Saturday when we're doing the marketplace, I think we'll also have to touch this issue of the speech. That will be very helpful. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm excited to be here.
Anthony Clinton.
Thank you very much again for the opportunity to come here and talk about our country. But look, I'll tell you this: I have not seen a person more committed to transforming our country than George Weah. I've had the opportunity to travel with the president on the country tour, and even against advice, the president reached to areas that have never before in the history of our country been reached, because he was anxious to hear the plight of our people and to address the concerns. And so the government is making strides. Are there challenges? Of course, there will all be challenges, but the government has made some great progress, and is still pushing. And I hope the Liberian people will give the president another opportunity in 2023.
Thank you so much, Mr. Duke.
Thank you, Dennis. Let me start by saying, thanks for the opportunity of being here. I know I was on this platform, with the first 100 days of President Weah, and we had a great discussion. It's been a couple of years, but it's always good to be, on a platform with, Morris Gamade. I know we see in the comment section the thing that I'm this ruthless person, but we can definitely have a real, dialogue. So I must say that, the president in the end.
Let me correct you, Duke. The prayer.
Yeah.
The prayer.
The prayer.
The prayer. I know. He talked about letting freedom reign, right? And apparently, whoever wrote that speech wanted to invoke his inner Martin Luther King. When Dr. King made the "I Have a Dream" speech, that speech was on the foundation of economic inequalities, a systemic issue with Jim Crow laws in the South that deprived Black America and a lot of African Americans the opportunity to thrive in their economy. And so what that was about was looking beyond the color of the skin and making sure everybody had equal opportunities to this nation's resources. And that's the reason why Gamade, can be proof of the level of success of the civil rights movement. And a lot of us have an opportunity to do that. I say this to say that when the president used something like that, he has to be truthful in his delivery. I think the constant lies, ignoring the plights of all of these young people who were the foundation of his leadership or the ascendancy into the presidency, is dishonesty. There's no progress in Liberia. The county tour does not have any economic impact. Building market stalls around the country does not have any economic impact. But I think this is an opportunity, Dennis, for young people to start thinking different. Do we want a continuation of this ruthlessness in this government, or do we want to champion a new path forward? I represent that new path, and that's why I suggested, I made the decision to be part of the ANC. I think Mr. Cummings done a phenomenal job in terms of telling us how to move forward. And I will hope that after today, Liberians now have a clarity to know that we can continue more of the same or move into a future of progress based upon substance and actual policy that can impact the lives of 5 million people. So thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we can talk about this conversation.
Thank you. And when there is a opposition response or a response from the CPP on the state of the nation, we're going to be right here to discuss it, and we're looking forward to that. Last comment here before I bring
Dennis, the CPP is not issuing a response.
Yeah.
Mr. Cummings is doing one, and JMB is doing another one. So I guess you want to do both of them. That's fine.
Well, and let me say this, Dennis, the current chair of the collaborating political party is actually doing an individual remark based upon his party. And that's something interesting because we hope that he could have shown some kind of leadership.
Oh, I knew you were going there, dude.
But the ANC will have a response.
And we're gonna call you back so that we can juxtapose the two and discuss. Focus on Liberia. Let's be honest. Liberia has been playing country since 1847. President Tolbert and a few of the guys before him did well with the hands they were felt. Tadma is in the category of Mobutu, Boyne, and other African dictators who exploited their people and their resources. Weah thinks leadership is a joke. Harsh word there from Dr. Batum Kula. Mr. Sia, your closing comments.
Well, Dennis, I just want to close by saying a big thank you to Gamon there, Perfect Manager, Mr. Maurice Kromah, Doug, for coming, and our own resident economist, Depu Zuo, for helping our people to understand, the whole thing about the state of the nation. I think Mr. Gamon there came with his Sakomoran juice, which is powerful from what I understand. I saw a level of energy. I want to close, on a serious note here. I want to see what the opposition will have to say. We have had the CPP that's supposed to now give a unified response to the CDC, but that is not the case. And I'm looking forward to that, to do my usual analysis. I think we had a great show today. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you so much. We want to thank our viewers also for being here on Focus on Liberia. Keep the dial set here on Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, on behalf of all of us here, we say thank you so much for watching. And remember, we never close a broadcast without playing the song that says, we are all Liberians. Whether you believe the state of the nation is steady and strong, or you believe it is deplorable or fragile, we are all Liberians. And it is incumbent upon all of us to do whatever it takes to make Liberia the glorious land of liberty. Have a
Dennis,
good night. And
I
God bless.
would say for a change, just play Mr. Liarman, please.
And Dennis.